welcome to the webinar. My name's Chris and I'm a business development manager here at JTF Marketing. We're going to discuss today about how to go further with Marketo. We're going to discuss around the topics of global and some local assets. So just a little bit about us first. So we are marketing automation experts. We're a bronze Marketo Engage solution partner with Adobe, and we love empowering automation. So we love going into some of the details that we can help support you become more autonomous and more capable with the solution. And that's one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how can we utilize some of these global assets to help scale up some of your marketing automation builds and make it easier for you. So we're going to go through what global and local assets are. We're going to go through some 5 different ways for these global assets to help ease your marketing automation builds. We're going to start talking about how to get started with globalization in Marketo, and then we'll do a bit of a Q&A. The main man who's going to take you through it is my friend Paddy. Paddy is a Marketo's certified expert. So over to Paddy.
Good to see you all here. So without further ado, we'll jump into a couple of the slides and I'll try to cover these points here. So the first one, what are global? There's a kind of combination of both global and local assets. So we'll probably start local. So the idea of a local asset is it's an asset that sits within one of your programs. So as you're building programs, you often will follow the usual structure that we follow, which kind of goes assets, campaigns, reports, and then within that assets group, you can add anything in there like lists, you can add emails, landing pages, forms, all of those typical assets. So you can, when you add them in that way, they're added as local assets. They are local to that program, and there are definitely benefits to that. But what we're kind of encouraging, what you'll see throughout these slides, is the global assets are actually a much more user-friendly and crucially scalable solution so that we try and use where possible. The global assets themselves then are built within the Design Studio. So the big difference there, built within Design Studio versus marketing activities within your programs. They can be the same assets pretty much. So your emails, your landing pages, forms, etc. But crucially, sit separately to those programs that you're building within marketing activities, but can be referenced by them. So it means that one program or one marketing activity can reference multiple global assets, multiple global assets within that kind of Design Studio, and crucially can be referenced by multiple programs. So they're really useful. It's they've got kind of a one-size-fits-all logic of you build it once within Design Studio, and you can reference it as many times as you like within marketing activities. So 5 ways to use global assets, and really there are a few more global assets technically, but these are the ones that we find most people most commonly use. So you've got smart lists, you've got global forms, you've got email templates, landing page templates, and you've got snippets. And what we'll do is we'll just touch on each of these just to dig a little bit deeper. So the first one that was on that list there is smart lists. So you may be looking at this and saying, this is already how I build my lists. So there's kind of 2 schools of thought here. Some people build all of their lists within their database. Some people build all of their lists within their programs. If you're in the first camp, then you're doing it exactly as we recommend. If you're in the second, this kind of example on the right is more like how we propose building smart lists. So build lists within your database, build global lists that you're going to use time and time again. So you'll see some examples in there like Marketo valid, invalid, all invalids, you've got MQLs kind of lumped together. So they're lists that we commonly pull through and use time and time again. So that often looks like, you'll already have your system smart lists in there. That's all of your people, it's all of your unsubscribes. They may your group smart lists may well just be slightly more granular, but still pretty broad brush. So anything that you're going to use often, we would say build it within the database and reference it within your programs. Forms. So forms is probably one of the trickier of the bunch. There's a couple of examples there. So there's multiple types of forms that we're saying there. So events, webinars, downloads, inquiries. But then you dig a little bit deeper and it suddenly becomes quite a lot of forms. So if we're going to localize these forms, you're then saying, okay, well, we've got an event form for every event and you've got a download form for every download. That can very quickly get pretty messy and pretty difficult to track. So globalizing those into a single event form and a single download form is really important. That then lends itself though to the question of how do we really understand what the people want when they're filling out these forms, or maybe what the intent is of filling out the form. So if we take the inquiry form as an example there, somebody filling out an inquiry form about I want to speak to a sales representative is very different to somebody filling out a form inquiring about a job. So you need to build them in such a way that you're taking that into account. So rather than them two forms being two different ones, it's a single form, but we use another attribute to understand where they sit within that version logic. So it may be a field. What are you interested in field or something like that? It may be a web page where it sits on your website, for instance, often like on the example on the right there, often used in things like downloads. So you've got to build them in such a way that you're still going to get the information that you need. You get all the benefits of not having to build them every single time, but you don't lose any of the information that you need by making sure that you can capture it in other ways. And they are just some of the benefits of global forms. For me, it's that top left one, it's consistency. And that kind of is a thread throughout all of those. So if you have consistency, then you have that level of security and compliance already in place. You don't need to worry about data and the centralization of data because they're all routing in the right way. You've tested it, that they're scalable. And for me, I think the big thing with a global form versus a local form is that repetition and it's easy updates, kind of that top right box there. You don't need every single time build a new form because if I'm honest, forms are one of those things that are probably the most long-winded to build within Marketo. Compared to something like an email template that's a little bit more of a drag and drop logic. Certainly if they're complex forms, there's quite a bit to think about there. Email templates was the third one. Hopefully you've all got JTF Marketing email templates, and I'm preaching to the congregation here, but for me, it's about flexibility with an email template. So the last thing you want when you're trying to build your emails is that mindset of, unfortunately, we can't do that because the variables don't allow, or we don't have the right module. You need to build them in the first place to allow kind of everything up to your brand guidelines. So if you imagine your brand guidelines as a cutoff, you should be able to do anything within them. Not past them is the important bit, but anything within them. And if it's limiting you further back than that, and you can't even do the things that you commonly do, then they're not really working for you. So I'd kind of encourage you to get in touch with an agency. Get in touch with ourselves in particular. We like to think our email templates are the best out there. But there's things, I've had plenty of conversations in the past of people saying, I didn't realize you could even make that variable, or I didn't realize you could put UTMs within these templates, so I don't need to input that information every single time. So yeah, there can definitely, all email templates are not created equal, I would say. And then there are some common challenges to overcome when you're building email templates. Outlook is a big one. I mean, you could get rid of the other two and just have Outlook symbol and right slap bang in the middle there, because it seems to be the bane of everybody's life. Outlook tends to do some pretty strange things like strip images or sections of code out of emails when they're sent, just based on whether it likes the look of them or not. So crucially, for me, it's about testing, understanding when I'm sending to certain clients, what is this email going to look like? And if Outlook are going to strip some things, how do we mitigate that and make them look as good as possible when Outlook decides to do those things to it? Make sure you don't have any bugs. You know, people get stuck in this rut of every single time I send, I'm fingers crossed, you know, hoping that it goes well, because it may or may not work. This module may or may not show as it should. You know, if you get something like an out the box template and really a template that's been really well tested, or even if you just run through that testing yourself, you need to be 100% confident that your templates are doing what they should be doing every single time. And this is just a quick example, actually, of one of the templates that we've built, which is quite a nice one. And just for anybody that's on the call that isn't as familiar with email templates, it's just a useful kind of video to see. So the whole idea for me is around that drag and drop modular kind of use case, the ability to use the variables on the right in combination with editing kind of on the fly on the left within the email, which is where you often edit text. We put things like the call to action text as editable on the left there within the email. The important bit there is that those things then can become dynamic, and you can make dynamic content with them. But you can see a whole host of modules there, and crucially, the variability within them allows you to flexibly create whatever it is you need to create. So different backgrounds, different alignments. You can have UTM parameters over there if that is the way you work. So really, you know, it's almost endless. So if you have any questions around what can be variable and where should the variability live, just get in touch and we can hopefully help you with that one. Landing pages. So landing pages is, for me, quite, you know, it's synonymous with forms. So forms can either live, you know, separately embedded in, say, your website, or they can live on a landing page, and that is often the go-to. Drop them on a landing page, capture any of that information that you want on the landing page, because the big thing for me is you don't need to rope in the IT team. There'll be a lot of people on the call that think, yeah, you know, updating a landing page sounds so easy, but by the time it goes through I raise a support ticket with the IT teams, they get back to me, I brief it in, etc. It's not particularly scalable. And Marketo really allows you to do that. It puts the onus back in the marketer's hands. Build these landing pages based on the similar logic to the email templates, albeit not quite as flexible. But you still have the variability to show hide logics, and really build some good looking landing pages. If you're looking at your landing page now and thinking it never looks very good, we've seen some fantastic examples, and we've built some fantastic examples that almost exactly mirror web pages. You know, we can build them in such a way that you wouldn't even know that you'd left your website and landed on a Marketo landing page, if that suits you. Doesn't have to be that way. And then there's other use cases, you know, highlighted there that you may or may not have used: surveys, events, registrations, all that kind of stuff. So they can be really flexible tools. And then snippets. So snippets are underused as a general rule, I would say, within Marketo. They're one of those components that you kind of hear about, kind of go, not really sure what that does, I'll just ignore it. But actually, it's got a pretty important use case within most instances. You can basically set a global snippet and then reference it within multiple assets. So if you, for instance, you can see the example on the right there, the snippet there is the footer. And what it's doing is every time we create an email, it's pulling the information from that snippet. What that allows you to do is, if you take a piece of information in that example, like at the very bottom, we've got the copyright year. When 1st of Jan comes around, or whenever it is that you want to update that, when you can go into the snippet globally, make that update, and it will be reflected on all of your emails moving forward. the flip side of that, and the clunky bit is if you don't use a snippet, you've got to go into every single email and update it, or update it at template level, but you still have to drag in that module again every single time. Snippet kind of circumvents some of that pain. So some really good use cases, and there are some quite adventurous ways of using snippets. Snippets can actually be dynamic as well. So you can get really quite in depth with snippet use. I think the important question is that we always ask is why do you want to use a snippet? It'll often be one of those things of, oh, snippets, let's find something to use a snippet for. Make sure you're always asking yourself, does this require a snippet? And if so, great. They've got some fantastic uses. How to get started with globalization. So you're either brand new into Marketo, in which case start now. Don't get yourself into a position where you've got lots and lots of local assets. I would encourage you to do so, and it's easier said than done, because often, you know, once you've started paying for this fancy Marketo tool, people want you to use it now. So you're in a rush, and you're building things on the fly, and it's very easy to just say, actually, I just need this form. I don't want to think about kind of scalability at this point. I just want to get something out, and build it as a local asset. Before you know it, you've got hundreds of them, and it's becoming a bit of a behemoth task to try and globalize. That being said, it is possible. So if your instance is one with lots of local assets, I would just say, you know, get started now with globalization. So everything, and in fact, you're almost in a positive position, because you will now know from those local assets and the pain that you're currently going through building them, what to globalize. So you should be globalizing anything, in my book, that you're using and reading a lot of times. So if you build the same form, a very similar form every time you do a certain program, say a gated content form, then globalize it. Bit of pain up front, but you'll pay dividends moving forward. There's then just a little intricacy to be worked through in your own mind, or with our support, to understand how we flip over from one to the other, and what we do with those people that have been through the existing one. Not particularly complex. It's just a bit of a mindset shift, really.
We've got a few different resources that you can then access on this. So a nice download, easy to implement shortcuts in Marketo. So some of the things around speeding up builds with tokens and speeding up campaign builds. So some nice ways for that. We've got a blog post about Marketo forms, and we've also got our forms training course, so our bite-sized forms training course, which is actually getting quite a lot of people engaged with it at the moment. So a lot of people digging into those things on forums. Scan the QR code, that'll take you straight there. We have another webinar 2 weeks today. I believe I'm right in saying that that's the last one this year. So we're going to put our Santa hats on and wrap it up. So yeah, look out for that coming into your inbox, your invite there, and we will see you then. Thank you very much.
Thank you.